Who doesn't want to visit Hawaii? With its beautiful beaches, majestic mountains, the weather, the food, the history, it's got it all, including, some would say, ghosts. You see, let's say that one night you decide to go up the Pali Highway near the Kamehameha battle site. You travel up alone against all warnings, and you take it in. Even at night, even in the darkness, Hawaii has a majesty, has a power that will enrapture you, will pull you in. And as you're drawn to watching the moon rise over the beauty of the ocean, you hear something in the distance. Slow, pounding, rhythmic drumbeat. It grows louder and closer. You feel the hair on the back of your neck begin to stand up, and for whatever reason, you can't explain it. You decide you need to hide. You need to not be seen. You duck behind a boulder or behind some tree and pray that whatever it is that's making that drumbeat doesn't see you. Against all wisdom, all rationale, all survival instincts, you peek around your hiding place and you see it. Men dressed in ancient garb, beating on a drum, marching inches above the ground, chanting in some at once beautiful and horrifying chant. Ancient. And you know it. You can't look at them. You avert your eyes. You hope they don't see you, and you wait anxiously for the night watchers, the night marchers, to pass you by. Hoping against all that you believe in, they don't take you wherever it is they're going. Welcome to today's Urban Legends Unmasked. We're talking the Hawaiian Night Marchers. I'm your host, Chad Lehrman. I've got to confess, I've never been to Hawaii. It's high on my list of priority of places to go. I love it. I'm not a big island person in general. I prefer the mountains. And I think that's what I can sell myself on Hawaii, is that it's got a little bit of both. It's got islands, it's got mountains, and it's got history. I'm a history guy. I love history. Obviously, Pearl Harbor would be definitely something I want to see. But even beyond that, there's the native history there of Hawaii, the things that harken back to a long ago time period when the tribal people were so free to do what they wanted to before European intervention, before the United States got involved, before all that kind of stuff. And it's that particular part that brings us to the Night Marchers, the legend that it really drew me here to Hawaii, that I really wanted to talk about. I find it to be a fascinating concept. This idea not of just one ghost or one spirit or one entity that you're told to watch out for, but this particular urban legend is an entire legion of these guys, or army of these guys, and they go marching around. And the thing about this one is a very well documented urban legend. And there's a lot of scores of people who claim to have seen these night marchers. And so I think it's a great spooky story, but I also feel like, again, the history person in me is coming out and saying, okay, there's a history aspect to this, and that sociological reasoning why some of these aspects of this legend are so important, and at the same time, extra creepy. And so let's talk a little bit about what we see here. Like the idea that a majority, according to tohawaii.com, they argue that a majority of Hawaiian residents claim to have actually experienced or seen the night marchers. So we're talking about a legend that's not difficult to find a personal anecdote or a personal story about. We're talking about an urban legend that, it pushes the boundaries, really. It really seems to be something that is just an accepted part of the culture in Hawaii. Some descriptions. They are armed spirit warriors. They're oftentimes armed in the traditional Hawaiian warrior garb. It says that they can be seen toting archaic weaponry. So we're talking some, pre-mechanized gunpowdery stuff. We're talking like clubs and swords and spears and those kind of things. So they're also sometimes seen as clothed in decorative gear as opposed to like the strict sort of military precision type stuff. So they also sometimes say that it appears that these spirits are not simply marching from place to place or trying to scare off wayward, tourists, but that they actually are escorting high-ranking spirit officials. Like the Ali rulers that seem to be around. So they're kind of like the spiritual the supernatural secret service, marching the kings of old from Hawaii around. Sometimes they argue that perhaps that they are, especially with the Kamehameha battle site, there are some that argue that perhaps they're trying to reclaim, they're trying to redress past wrongs or overcome past battle losses in that. And so, there's even some that suggest that perhaps these spirits are trying to avenge their death. That they died in battle and now these folks have come back and they're trying to fight that thing. Sometimes they hear them chanting alongside the drums. Sometimes they're silent. Sometimes they simply move quietly around. Sometimes people think it's an actual performance. We know that Hawaii does have a lot of things. Like they'll have the performance of the hula dances and the fire tosses and those kind of things. And so some people see the torches coming and they hear the drum beat and they think, oh, we're getting a free show. We're watching this. And then of course something very, very different occurs. But one of the things that's important is that, in the story that I opened with, they mention the idea that you're encouraged not to make eye contact with them. The legend holds that if you make eye contact with them, if they see you and you see them, like you're, eye to eye, face to face, that you will be taken with them, that they will snatch you up and take you wherever it is they're going. That right there would terrify me. First of all, if I see someone marching along and they are a couple of inches off the ground and I make eye contact with them, I'm bold enough to look at them and look them in the eye, and they look back at me, I am out. I don't care where I am running, I am sprinting, because one of my number one fears is that I look at a window and there's a face staring back at me. So if it's a supernatural face and there's no window between us and it's staring at me, I am not sticking around to figure out exactly what those guys are up to. I'm gone. Now, that's where the terrifying part comes in, because I don't really know if they chase you. If they do, then I'm in trouble. I don't run very fast. Not anymore. I used to, but no longer. Age and meniscus surgery definitely takes it out of you on that one. Now, these are called the night marchers. There have been a couple of instances where they have marched during the day, but predominantly we see these folks at night. And I mentioned also that they're typically seen as floating above the ground, but there have been some locals who have said that they can see unshoed footprints, the barefoot footprints after these guys have marched through. So there's definitely some elements of powerful supernatural imagery here. Let's say you're in Hawaii and you want to check it out. There's a couple of places, and I apologize. I tried to Google pronunciations on most of these places, and so if I get them wrong, I apologize for that ahead of time. So Pali Highway, which I mentioned was the Kamehameha battle site, is one of the most common, and that they frequently are seen in that region, in that particular area. So a lot of people say, hey, that's where you want to check out. Another one would be Kamehameha schools in Kapalama on Oahu. They said, again, lots of times we see the night marchers showing up there. Another location is the Kualoa Ranch on the windward coast of Oahu. They've been spotted around an area that said used to be the homes of Hawaiian chiefs. So that would kind of make sense, especially if you've got this idea that they are these supernatural entities that are guarding special, high-ranking officials, like former rulers or kings. That one's an interesting one. It says apparently there's a lot of car accidents reported. Imagine you're driving along the highway and you see some people marching across, not on the ground. That's going to make me want to, swerve. Okay, at La Perouse Bay, in the Ahihi Canal Natural Area Preserve in South Maui, apparently there's a temple site there. So we also see that too. It's not just the battle sites. A lot of times they will see it near sacred locations. Actually, there was an episode of Hawaii Five-0, I believe, a few years ago, which actually like had the night marchers involved. And in that particular story, I believe it was that they were marching near an undiscovered burial site. And so there's definitely some indication that perhaps these guys are guarding holy or sacred sites, burial sites, old temple sites as well. And I like that aspect of it too. I think that's an interesting, unique thing. And when I get to my explanation at the end, there's some really, I think personally, like if this is truly occurring, if these spirits really are there, I think I have some theories as to why. So we'll get to that later. In the town of Kaunakakai, on Molokai, it's rumored to be a big spot. Okay, another one, another temple site there. Let's see. Lai on Oahu was a city of refuge. So a lot of your ancient cultures, and I'm telling this because there were, as a history teacher, I'm recently going through ancient civilizations with my students. So cities of refuge were places where perhaps those who had been accused of a crime could go safely to kind of hide away. And so that's another one of these. This is an example where religious practices like had been violated, and so these folks could go to this sanctuary city. So it's possible that they are looking for people who got away, people who in life had been guilty of some sort of crime, and they took off, and now they're hunting them down. So let's say that you are one of the crazy or bold, however you choose to perceive this one, folks who likes to go and see this kind of thing, and you are going to hang out at Poly Highway or Kalao Ranch, and you are waiting for the night marchers to come along. What do you do and what do you not do? Well, the legend has said that when you see one, don't interrupt it. I mean, I don't know why you would. They have spirit swords and spears, and they're angry. So no, don't interrupt it. Let it go. If you do lay your eyes on them and they lay eyes back on you, this is where it could be that you are taken. So what they say is, if you hear the drums, lay low to the ground, crouch, prostrate to the ground, play dead, and try not to look at them. I know, you're there to see them, but if you don't want to be taken into the spirit world, err on the side of caution. Okay. It says any sound or movement could invite their glance. So you want to be quiet as a church mouse, as silent as you possibly could be. So it does say that they are not considered, that they will not deviate from their path. So like, let's say that you see them from a distance, they're not going to turn and chase you. So there's the answer to the other one. I would imagine though, if you do like make noise, it does say that they will look at you. So maybe they don't even have to run. Maybe simply looking at you is enough to snatch you, ghost kidnap. There are a couple of nights, special nights. Pokane, during nights of the Hawaiian god Kane, chiefesses, priests, and close attendants tend to march. And Po'akua, on the 14th night of the new moon, similar thing occurs there. So those are good nights. In which you usually, there's a lot of activity. Things that you will hear or see, according to this website. By the way, this is just a wealth of knowledge here, tohawaiian.com. Great site to check out. It's got some great information. It can tell you how to move to Hawaii, in case you wanted to, go to Hawaii. It says there's heavy wind, rows of spirits carrying torches, obviously. Alternating male and female roles. So that's an interesting aspect too, that some of these warriors are, we typically think of these things, I'm envisioning when I'm first telling this story, that it's predominantly male, but you've got female warriors in there. So maybe there's something to be said about the sociology of the ancient Hawaiian cultures. Lightning and thunder, heavy rain and surf, chanting and drum beating, very bright torches, game playing and revelry. I don't think of soldiers as being like that when they're on a march, but yeah. With all this being said, this is a fascinating urban legend to me. I mean, I got to say, part of me would kind of like to go check it out. I'd kind of like to go see what it looks like, see exactly what's happening out there. That being said, I really don't know what to tell you. I think that there's some interesting aspects to this and some things well worth checking out. Okay, so now Now to the theories part. What do I think is going on here? So I think I may have said before, I am open-minded about this. I'm open-minded about the idea that spirits do exist. Um, as I said, I was a minister at one point, and it was frowned upon, honestly, for a person who is a Christian minister to believe that ghosts were real, which I always found odd, because honestly, ghosts are in the Bible. That exists. It is depicted that Samuel, the ghost of Samuel, is called up and curses Saul. Bad things happen to Saul. So I do definitely think that ghosts are possibly real. I think they can exist, and I definitely feel like that if they do, that there is some element of vengeance, perhaps, or revenge, or atonement, maybe. That there's some sort of unfinished business in the mindset of these spirits. And so this particular legend of the Night Marchers really, to me, lines up with that concept. It's this idea of ancient warriors who perhaps failed in life to protect a king or a chief, or they lost a battle, or they feel that they are eternally called to protect the sacred shrines and sites and temples and burial grounds of their ancestors and descendants. So I think that there's definitely, if ever there's going to be a place to be haunted, that's the kind of thing. And understanding too that the ancient Hawaiian people were very spiritual. They very much believed in the spirit world and the connection that they had with their gods. And I think that's an interesting aspect too, that a lot of times when you look at some of these like very ancient island cultures especially, you typically find them to be animistic. So they don't really believe in gods, they believe in spirits being everywhere. And that doesn't seem to be the case here with the Hawaiian traditions, that they tend to be worshiping gods and deities who have animistic qualities, by the way, like animism being like the worship of nature or spirits, those kind of things. So I definitely feel like the Night Marchers have that potential to be ancient spirit guardians, that kind of thing. Now, there's also the possibility of there being, if you want to take all the joy out of life and pretend that the ghosts aren't real, it's a great tourist thing, guys. Like, it's great. It would be awesome for, especially in modern times, people can dress up. People can have all sorts of special effects wrapped around them. And especially if part of the legend is, hey, don't look too close, then you can hide some things, So I get, people go to Hawaii for all sorts of reasons. I give them a good show, that kind of idea, that kind of concept. So I think that there's a possibility of that. I don't really, honestly, on this one, I don't feel like that's what it is. I do think that sometimes we see what we want to see, and some of the descriptions definitely fit. We're talking about super dark nights. We're talking about now an overly bright light. Now, how do you fake seeing that? How do you not see that? Again, maybe your mind plays tricks on you or that kind of thing. But it does also describe that oftentimes a heavy mist or a fog tends to accompany the arrival of the Night Watchers. So perhaps they're hidden. Some of that is there. So you're looking into the fog. It's the old childhood thing. I think I see a monster outside my window, but nope, it's just my oak tree waving in the wind. Maybe it's something like that. Closure, again, that psychological closure. But as the urban legend side of it, like the community members, they definitely, whether they're seeing these things or not, they definitely have built the lore up around the Night Marchers. And there's definitely some warning to it. And I feel like when you look back at the history of Hawaii, of course, that essentially the United States stole it from the people. It had been its own kingdom. They parked some warships out in the ocean there and basically threatened them. They took over the land, that kind of thing. There's definitely some indications that the original leaders, the rulers, the kings, the queen, actually at that time, wasn't too happy about what happened. Wasn't too happy about losing their freedom and their kingdom to the Americans who'd come over. And so I look at it from this perspective that perhaps some of the legend is that the locals look at it as their chance to kind of get revenge. It's that kind of that way of, let's sell this story that if you crazy white folks come over here and you look at our ghostly Night Marchers, then they're going to get you. and maybe there is some dark revenge in that. I don't know. And maybe that's what the spirits are doing. Maybe they're saying, this is our way. We're still defending our island. You may have taken over and you may have captured us, but it's still our place. And so I think that's it. I think there's perhaps in the urban legend idea of it, I think the storytelling, the avert your eyes, I think it's sort of a way for, whether it's intentional, whether it's conscious or subconscious, perhaps those who are telling the legend are trying to say, this is still ours. Like, you may have taken our island, but our legends and our stories, they're ours, and you don't get to look at them. That's a powerful statement in itself, I think. That, excuse me, when you look at history and you look at legends in regions where there are conquered peoples, and so much is taken away, so much is lost to them in assimilation or in forced accommodations or whatever it is, when the dominant party, when the group who wins the battle comes in and says, no, we're going to do things our way. The conquered people find ways. They find their way to hold on to a little bit of who they are. And I find whether there are literal ghosts marching around on Hawaii or it is simply, collective hallucination or local Hawaiians dressing up and giving a good show, whatever it may be, it's a piece of history that the Hawaiian people get to hold on to. And I love that they're bold about talking about it and they love sharing it because it's theirs and they're holding on to it. And that, I think, is a very powerful, powerful message in this urban legend. A lot of times we talk about ghosts and, things like, don't eat Pop Rocks and Coke, or, hey, don't, go walking in the woods at night by yourself, those kind of things. But this one's a different one to me. I love, there's a beauty in this, and it's that, hold on to the things that matter. Hold on to the stories and the legends. And maybe in 100 years when culture has changed and these legends that I'm telling you guys and that you're reading about, that you're telling your kids, that's going to be yours. And maybe some new legends will come along. Maybe we'll have some things and we'll tell stories and people will look at us and think we're crazy, but want to hear more. That's the beauty of stories. Real ones, fake ones, morality tales, and ghost stories. We just love to be entertained. I know I do. And so I hope you're entertained by these stories. I hope you're entertained. And I hope if you have the money, the time, and the willpower to go and visit Hawaii and check out the Night Marchers, that you will drop a line and let us know exactly what you saw. How terrifying or cool or awesome was it? Love to hear about that. Love to hear what's going on with that. If you are not up to travel, if you're not wanting to hang out in Hawaii, but you still want a thrill, I again always recommend that you check out my books on Amazon.com. Beneath These Brittle Bones is out right now. It is a story about things from the past that come back to haunt you. Not quite as, brilliantly beautiful as this. It's kind of gross and disgusting, but Beneath These Brittle Bones, good way to go. Then there's also Killtown, my ode to horror slashers from the 80s and 90s. And I've got some other books too. Sawyer Shepherd Chronicles is about fighting monsters and demons and, finding your destiny. Some great stuff there. Hope you'll check those things out. If not, if this is your first time to hear our podcast, we got a bunch more behind it. So go back. We are currently on Hawaii dealing with urban legends from all 50 states. Looking forward to next week. And we will go to a very different place from Hawaii because there's no place like it in the United States. Hope to see you guys next time on Urban Legends Unmasked. I've been your host, Chad Lerman.